Hi, my name's Sarah Fenner. I'm a Microsoft Certified Trainer. I focus on Office 365. My main courses that I deliver focus on productivity within Office 365, helping you use the tools to work smarter without necessarily needing to work harder. It's a great slogan, but for me it means helping me get through my work more effectively, more efficiently, without needing to put in more hours. This particular session is going to focus on ad hoc communication. So by ad hoc communication, we mean communicating with people we don't regularly communicate with. It may be a one-off. It may be that you communicate with them occasionally. It may be you communicate with them very regularly, but over quite an extended time period. So not day to day, maybe month to month, once or twice, and so on. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about ad hoc communication. Using these tools effectively will help you to start choosing the most appropriate communication method. It will also help you to be able to ask others for assistance as required more efficiently and effectively, to find the right people to ask by searching their profiles and looking at their expertise, to see if people are available to communicate with, to take calls and so on by looking at their presence. But also we need to learn to respect the presence of others and not try to contact people when they're down as do not disturb. We also need to be open to being contacted ourselves. After all, no one's going to answer your questions if you don't answer theirs. But also it's nice and quick. So using these tools will enable us to communicate in a quick and efficient way with our colleagues to find the answers that we need. Effective use of communication tools also help us to avoid falling into collaboration pitfalls, as there were. So we don't have to use email as our primary communication method. We can reply using alternative methods if more appropriate. We can separate communication from the rest of the workload, helping us again to focus on our workload rather than getting dragged into immediately replying to communication. We don't have to wait for information to come to us. We can proactively go and find it. And we don't need to use only email for gathering information. There's a wealth of information out there. We don't need to rely on people to send it to us. To get the best of the tools, we need to avoid closing the instant messenger client, closing Teams, because obviously we can't communicate with it if it's closed. And also we need to avoid blocking instant messages when we are available. So making sure we effectively manage our presence to enable us to communicate most efficiently with our colleagues so that they know when we really are available and can contact us appropriately. So best practices, whether we're communicating with technological tools or communicating face-to-face with our colleagues, require us to harness the knowledge in the organisation effectively, making sure that we can find the right people to ask and that those people advertise their knowledge. We also need to be able to have community-wide communication, not just one-to-one, one to group, group to group, to keep the lines open so we don't become siloed, especially within larger organisations. And also we need to ensure that we send our messages to the correct audience. So we need to be careful to make sure we pick up the right person, especially when there's several people with very similar names in the organisation. So best practice behaviours haven't changed, even though we're looking at using the newer tools with Office 365. So as we've already alluded to, the two contenders, if you like, for communication with inside Office 365 are Outlook and Teams. Those are our two main communication tools that we'd use for ad hoc communication. Okay, they each have their own strengths and weaknesses, and if we focus on the strengths and utilise the appropriate tool for its strength, then we get the best out of the tool set. Generally speaking, and not in every case, but generally speaking, Outlook is more for a more formal and external communication. So normally client communication would be in Outlook, for example. Teams is much more rapid communication style, much more suited to working with colleagues on a project. But then if you're collaborating with external partners, you may bring those into Teams as well. So think about it as the sort of cadence of communication and the regularity of communication with those people. The more infrequent and the further removed from you that person is, then the more likely you are to revert to using tried and trusted method of email within Outlook. The more rapid your communication style, the more varied the topics, the more likely you are to use Teams. So Outlook within Office 365 offers us a number of enhanced features that really improve our ad hoc communication, especially with people we don't really know. So automatic replies, where we set our email to automatically reply to messages that come in. Usually, for most of us, this is just when we're out of the office, but do consider it for other times as well. If you've got a deadline to meet, if you're expecting a large amount of emails about a particular topic, for example. Within Outlook Online, Outlook for the web, within Office 365, we do have the ability to set extra controls in when we set those out of office messages, those automatic replies, especially around meetings. So we set it for a restricted time frame, and we can choose to cancel selected or all meetings in our diary for that period, and also any invites that come in while we're away will be for the same period will be automatically responded to, letting people know that we're not available to attend the meeting, so they don't sit there and think, that person's really rude, they haven't bothered to reply to my message. Also, when we're collaborating with people, it's really useful when they can see our diary. But you don't want to share your diary to the whole world. So therefore, you need to make sure that you share only the appropriate sections of your diary and only at appropriate times. And within Outlook, for Office 365, we have the ability to share our availability. Sending a section of our calendar or even just suitable time slots for a meeting. And this is actually really great done from a mobile device or from the web browser version of Outlook. We don't need to be tied to our desktop anymore to benefit from all of these rich collaboration features. The contact card, if you've used Outlook at all anywhere recently, you will have seen the contact card, but it's a super rich experience. Not only can we see about the person that we're talking to, we can see the details of our interactions with those people, previous emails, files we've interacted on together. We can connect LinkedIn, and obviously with customers and colleagues that can be super useful, being able to pick up their LinkedIn profile and see that just because they've sent you an email. And those connections just make our experience of communicating with people a lot richer, and you feel much more like you're communicating with the person rather than with your computer, and therefore your interaction becomes a much richer experience. Now let's have a look at a few features actually in demo. Let's load the first video. So let's have a look at Outlook, working in Outlook for the web. And what I'm going to do is write a new message, and I need to contact my son. So let's pull him up. All of my characters are based on Star Wars characters. I asked my teenager for some made up names, and these are the ones I got. So those are the ones I'm using in my demo environment today. So writing an email to Ben, and the name has resolved in here, and you can see that I've now got the ability to send an email, and I'm going to ask Ben for an update on our latest project. There we go. Oh, need to get my spelling right and send that off. Now, I can't remember if I've already sent Ben a whole load of other information. So if I go and hover over his name now, it brings up his contact card, and you see that I've got his contact details here, potential matches in LinkedIn, the email that we've just... So let's have a look at Outlook, working in Outlook for the web. And what I'm going to do is write a new message, and I need to contact my son. So let's pull him up. All of my characters are based on Star Wars characters. I asked my teenager for some made up names, and these are the ones I got. So those are the ones I'm using in my demo environment today. So writing an email to Ben, and the name has resolved in here, and you can see that I've now got the ability to send an email, and And now let's have a look at how we can use Outlook to send our availability, this time working from a mobile phone. Okay, so we've got an email here that we're writing. Shame we didn't notice the autocorrect as we wrote it, but there we go. These things happen. It's one of the funs of working with a mobile device and why I've got the disclaimer at the bottom. So picking an attachment and choosing the availability, then choose the slots out of your diary where you're available to have a meeting, and then simply send that on its way. So in the previous video, you saw me sending my availability from the mobile device, complete with typos. And now we're looking at it from Leia's perspective. So Leia's received this email and she wants to accept one of the times. So we know which times have been sent over. Okay. So I know where I want to pick for my meeting times here. Okay. Now, at the moment, at the time of recording, within Outlook on the web, I don't have the ability to interact with these easily. I should be able to click on them, but there's a slight block at the moment. But what we'll do is we'll just take the time that we know has been picked and we'll do a meeting invite. Let's turn those automatic replies off. I need to switch those on in a minute to show you how it works. Okay, so we're just going to have a quick meeting between Leia and Sarah, and we wanted to go with today at 3 o'clock. I think that was one of the options. Notice how it's offering us the next free slots, and that's not including today, quite simply because Leia doesn't have working time today in her schedule. It was actually 3:30 that we'd set, so there we go. I don't need a reminder. Thank you. So in the previous video, you saw me sending my availability from the mobile device, complete with typos. And now we're looking at it from Leia's perspective. So Leia's received this email and she wants to accept one of the times. So we know which times have been sent over. Okay. So I know where I want to pick for my meeting times here. Okay. Now, at the moment, at the time of recording, within Outlook on the web, I don't have the ability to interact with these easily. I should be able to click on them, but there's a slight block at the moment. But what we'll do is we'll just take the time that we know has been picked and we'll do a meeting invite. Let's turn those automatic replies off. I need to switch those on in a minute to show you how it works. Okay, so we're just going to have a quick meeting between Leia and Sarah, and we wanted to go with today at 3 o'clock. I think that was one of the options. Notice how it's offering us the next free slots, and that's not including today, quite simply because layer doesn't have. By now, many of you will have already used Microsoft Teams. You're probably using it already to communicate with your colleagues that you work with most closely, maybe on a particular project. Did you also know that you can use Teams to communicate one-to-one or one-to small group basis on an ad hoc? So very much like we used to use Skype or even Skype for Business within organisations, Teams has all of that functionality within it. And the advantages we get from using Teams in an ad hoc setting is obviously the presence notification of the person we want to talk to. That little green blob means they're actively sat at their computer, they haven't got anything in their diary, they're not on a phone call. So we should be pretty safe to give them a quick call. I always advocate sending a quick hi message first, just to make sure you're not breaking their concentration. They might be green, but they still might be focused. So a little quick hello message to start with is a great way to start a conversation. The other main advantage of Teams for an ad hoc communication is the Who bot. So I can go to the Who bot within Teams just by posting a message to the Who bot and asking them, who is the James who works in accounts? Which Susan attended the meeting on Project X last week? Those sorts of questions will help me find the right people. My favourite is, who emailed me about? Only problem is most people put it as a subject on my emails as Office 365, so a bit more variety when you're emailing me, please. So those things can be really useful. Online meetings, it's not just an environmental or a cost consideration, it's also a practical consideration. It's much easier to pick up the phone and talk to somebody, but a phone call doesn't always give us the interaction we want. For example, this training course is so much better because down in the corner there you've got my little video. You can see me talking, the odd pause where I stumble for a word. You've got the little video so you can see my face thinking in the corner there. The online meetings give us those richness as well as then the interaction with PowerPoint presentations on the screen, video you might want to share, even to the extent of desktop sharing where I can pull up a website and look at it and go, well, I'm thinking of this thing, what do you think? So it gives us a lot of richness to that phone call type meeting. Threaded conversations in Teams are incredibly useful. I start a conversation about a particular topic and we all reply to that topic. Then if we start a new conversation and reply into that topic, the two aren't interleaved, they aren't muddled. I don't get confused as to which message relates to what, to where am I going? So that makes it a lot tidier, a lot easier to follow. It does need you to use the correct reply box, please. So when you're replying to a message, just underneath the little reply box, please use that one, not right at the bottom. Start a new conversation. Also in Teams we have the shared files, which make it much easier for us to go back and find the files that we've been working on or talking to our colleagues about, especially from an online meeting. I've already mentioned the screen sharing, that it brings an incredibly rich experience to our conversations as well. So here we've got a project. As you can see, so just a few tips for you to consider to get the most out of your ad hoc communications, mainly focused on Teams. So if you're already talking to one person in Teams and you need to add a new person in, you might want to consider restarting the conversation and recapping what's already been discussed. Now you don't have to, you can add one person and they can see the rest of the conversation. If we then go on to add other people, they get a slightly different experience. So just watch out for that. Sometimes, therefore, it's better to start a group conversation and recap what was going on in the one-to-one than just adding people. Before you start an ad hoc group conversation, do consider why you need to speak to these people. Would a team be better? Are you going to be going back to this same group for lots of different topics or on a more regular basis? We can't take an ad hoc conversation and convert it into a team currently. This is Office 365. Things change. By the time I finish recording this video, there'll be a new feature inside Office 365. So maybe we'll be able to do that in the future. I don't know, guessing. By the way, if you find things you really want to see inside Office 365, do go and have a look at user voice. Do send in your suggestions. It's always a great way to get that new feature you want, is to tell someone you want it. So on to my third tip. So communication on any Office 365 tool is subject to policies and procedures in place within your organisation for using IT tools. It's a professional tool. You're expected to be professional when you're using it. So just be aware of that. I have a teenager at home, and I spend a lot of time reminding him and his friends that everything they do online is there forever. And to a certain extent, we have the same when we're in a more professional setting, that everything we do is visible, and therefore we need to make sure that we're being totally professional in all of our interactions. It's very easy to forget where you've got a quick text message type conversation going on with a colleague, but we don't need to maintain the same standards and follow the same policies and procedures, but we do. Last but not least, you don't have to set up a group or have a one-to-one conversation to use Teams for meetings. You can invite anyone to a meeting if they have an email address, subject to your organisation policy, of course, and they can attend a team meeting, and therefore you can get all the benefit of Microsoft Teams inside that meeting with that potential new customer, with that potential new employee, with that potential new partner. So lots of richness for us to explore. So to finish with, just a quick reminder of the sorts of behaviours you're trying to achieve to get the most out of those Office 365 communication tools when you're communicating with your outer ring of people. So start to use the tools to communicate most effectively, trying to avoid all the pitfalls and continuing to use best practice. Thank you for the time you've taken to watch today's video.